Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. Each week our goal is to give you at least one suggestion that will make your life a little better. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, a certified personal trainer, and a health coach. Please remember, everything we discussed on the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. So we have a special guest today. We have Zach the Zebra, and I brought Zach the Zebra in actually to make a couple of points. And this is based actually on a really famous book. And if you had a chance, I suggest you read it. It's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And this is written by Robert Sapolsky. He's a professor at Stanford, probably one of the top universities in the country. He's what they call an evolutionary biologist. And I read the book, and I really got a lot out of it. I've had a lot of medical professionals on my show. In fact, a few weeks ago, I had on Dr. Emily, and she's got more degrees than a thermometer after her name. She's a nurse practitioner and also a psychiatric nurse. I've also had on the show other medical professionals. I had Dr. Chi, a board certified, gerontologist. I've had a lot of other medical professionals, and they're dealing basically with medical issues. And our brain and our body are connected. In fact, one of the interesting points about this book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, this actually is a textbook for students, but it's very readable. In other words, you don't have to be, you don't have to be a scientist to understand it. It kind of goes over. He has a lot of really good analogies related to humans. But one of the things he talks so much about is stress, and all these medical professionals, and another one I had on was Rachel, and she deals with something called CBD, which stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. One of the big issues now is stress is really what they call a silent killer. There's a lot of people have a lot of stress, and what this book goes into in this Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers is how, humans are obviously we're different than zebras, and we're also even different than monkeys, and that we have a tendency. I'll give you the perfect example, and this is the example that they use in the book. So we have Zach the zebra here. See if I can make him right. So Zach the zebra, he's walking along and he's munching on the grass and everything. Actually, I have a lion. I should have brought the lion in. I don't have the lion with me. So Zach the zebra is walking along, and all of a sudden a lion comes behind him. Now Zach the zebra, he's going to look behind him. He's going to see that lion, and he's going to run. So Zach has got two things going to happen. One or two things are going to happen to Zach. One of them is he's going to escape the lion, or the lion's going to catch him. He's going to eat him. This is what happens in very, very stressful situations. What will happen is, I'll get a little bit into biochemistry here. So you have a part of your brain that's called the limbic system. Now, the limbic system is kind of a survival mechanism. It's really very much to do with stress. You guys may have heard a part of the limbic system. It's called the amygdala. Amygdala is related, releases a lot of cortisol. It's related to fight or flight. So we really have, actually there's three options. There's you can either fight, if you're attacked by somebody, you can either fight them, or you're going to run away. The third one is called freeze, and this is what a possum does, right? They'll freeze, hopefully that the predator won't see them. So those are three, and that happens sometimes. People will freeze out of fear. But you've probably heard the expression, a person pees their pants or poops their pants when they get very, very afraid. The reason for that is, I'm going to go use my friend Zach again to illustrate this. So when Zach is running away from the lion, either he's going to escape or he's not going to escape. So Zach is going to do everything possible not to be eaten by the lion. If let's say Zach has got a lot of food in his stomach, well, he can't afford to have a lot of food in his stomach. So what he's going to do, he's going to defecate. He's going to get rid of that, or he's going to pee it out. So he's going to get as lean as he possibly can, so Zach can run as fast as he possibly can. The other thing that'll happen while Zach is running away, Zach is not worrying about catching a cold or getting sick because he's in imminent danger from the lion. His immune system will shut down. Now, your body has something, going back to your high school biology days, it's called the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria wind up actually talking to one another. In other words, they want all the energy to go in the most efficient way. So it's going to go to all of the muscles, all the mitochondria, all the energy is going to go into all the muscles so Zach can run away because his muscles have to be pushing him away from the line. So what will happen is he doesn't need to worry about catching a cold. So all of his immune energy is going to go to his muscles. Also, Zach doesn't have to worry about meeting up with a girl zebra and having a baby zebra. He's not worried about reproducing with a girl zebra. So all of the energy from his reproduction goes into his muscles. So all the energy goes into muscles. It's not worrying about anything else. That's why the expression people poop their pants or pee their pants is correct. They will get rid of everything because, again, in the end, we're really smart monkeys. We share 99% of our DNA with monkeys, with chimpanzees. Very, very similar. Again, we're really smart monkeys. Now, the smart part has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. So let's go back to Zach. So Zach, poor Zach, maybe he gets eaten by the lion, okay, and he's gone. There's nothing to worry about. He's gone. He's gone into zebra heaven, and he's happy, and Zach's happy. The other possibility is Zach is going to escape from the lion. Now, once Zach escapes from the lion, he doesn't worry anymore about the lion. Okay, he's looking around. The lion's gone. He doesn't perseverate. He doesn't worry about the lion. Animals live. There's the really famous book by Eckhart Tolle called "The Power of Now." You want to live in the now. You can't change what happened in the past, and you can't control the future. This is what Buddhists do. They just live in the now, live in the present moment. And that's what animals do. Animals live in the now. They're not worried about they're not thinking about what happened yesterday. They're not worrying about the future. They're living in the right now. So what happens when he escapes, Zach goes back and he winds munching up the grass, and Zach's happy. He's not worrying about the lion anymore. Okay, so that's why Robert Sapolsky is talking about. That's why zebras don't get ulcers. We, on the other hand, I'll give you an example, and I was very much guilty of this when I was younger. Fortunately, I got over it. Have you ever been in a position where you're driving along and somebody cuts you off and, damn that person, blah, blah, blah. What happens is when that person cuts you off and they're gone on their way, you're probably still perseverating over that. You're thinking about it. What happens with us, once we release these stress hormones like cortisol and things like that, unlike a zebra, where we're going to just let it go once we're escaped, we're going to keep those stress hormones going in our brain, and we're going to keep being stressed. Remember, what happens when you're running away from the lion, now we don't know the difference between running away from the lion or that person cutting us off in traffic. I'll give you a perfect example. My son, one time I was at a new kitchen at a cafe, and my son, I was guilty of this, of having road rage, getting really, really mad at people that cut you off or do things to you. And when he came in, and you could see there was smoke coming out of his ears, and he was like, that person, he did this to me, he did that to me. He said, I got so damn mad that I hit my fist up against the roof of the car and I hurt my hand. I said, Matt, that person doesn't care. You know, you're not helping. You're really punishing yourself by getting mad. That other person doesn't care. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know how many times somebody's done something really stupid to you in traffic, and they pull in front of you, do something really crazy, and you beep your horn, and they wind up giving you the finger, and you're like, you're the idiot, but they don't see it that way. Again, it doesn't do any good to get angry, because what's happening is that person is actually making you angry. I'll give you another example. I go to the gym a lot, and I had this one guy, I saw, he definitely was an alpha male. You know, he was lifting weights, doing this stuff, but he was also a construction worker. And what I found interesting with him was we got talking, and he's driving away, and he says, I'm going to be going to my construction job now. And he says, one of the things I can't stand, I drive and people get me so upset and this, and this. And I said to him, I says, look at John. I said, they're not making you upset. You're allowing yourself to get upset, okay? Because no one can make you upset without your permission, because your brain takes information in and you process that information, I'll give you, not to get religious here, but give you an example. When they crucified Jesus Christ said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. They spit on him and everything else. And, he just he just chilled out. That's it. He controlled his mind. So if you think about it, you really control your mind. Nobody can make you angry or anything else without your permission. Everything goes into your brain, and it depends on how you process that information. But getting back to the stress thing, so if you're stressed over an extended period of time, again, remember, like Zach, you're shutting down your immune system. You guys have probably heard of something called shingles. Now, everybody has the shingles virus inside of them. We have it from the chickenpox virus. Everybody has it. But what happens is all viruses in your body, there's something else called the Epstein-Barr virus. The Epstein-Barr virus is something you get from mononucleosis, the kissing disease. 99% of everybody, whether you had mononucleosis or not, you were exposed to it. But all of these viruses exist inside of your body, and they're just waiting for the opportunity, because right now you have what's called white cells in your body. One particular white cell is called the macrophage. Fancy word. Macro means big, phage means eating. It means a white cell that munches things up. So you have these white cells. Imagine they're like little Pac-Man going all over your body, and they're looking for these viruses. They also actually kill cancer cells. I've got a picture when I do my seminars. It shows these macrophages eating up the cancer cell. So these are like patrol agents going all over your body looking for things that don't belong in there. But remember, like Zach, when you're running away from the lion or when you're stressed out, you don't know the difference between stressed out because the guy just pulled you over, or your boss yelled at you at work, or maybe your wife yelled at you or your husband yelled at you and you're stressed out. If you allow that to keep going, you're in this constant fight or flight mode. Let's go back into a little bit of biochemistry. So you have in your body, you have something called the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic, like automatic. There's two parts of that. There's the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic means the fight or flight. You're either going to run away, or you're going to fight, or you're going to freeze. The other one is the parasympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system, it's like the Buddha state. You're calm, you're chill, everything's wonderful. You can only be in one state or the other. So you'd like to be in the parasympathetic state as much as possible, because what's happening is you've got all your macrophages running away, eating up the viruses, killing the cancer and things like that. So you want to be in that parasympathetic state. When you're in the sympathetic state, remember, you're shutting down your immune system. Okay, I had a client, Planet Fitness, one of the head trainers over there. He sends me all of his clients to deal with the nutrition part, and because he's not a nutritionist. So he sent me this one Brazilian girl, lovely girl, maybe in her 30s, great shape, didn't need anything to do with, in terms of actually the exercise. But about 5 or 10 minutes into the seminar I had with her, I said to her, I said, Mary, I said, your problem, I don't think it's the diet. Your problem is you're stressed to the nines. And she looked at me and she says, it's funny you should mention that. Her boyfriend, her husband is saying, she's the kind of person that comes home stressed all the time. She kicks the dog because she's upset. And she said, the other thing, now this is a 30-year-old girl, and she came down with shingles. A person that age should not be coming down with shingles, because as we get older, our immune system becomes less and less efficient, okay? So, and I says, the reason you came down with shingles is because you're in a constant state of stress. You're in a constant state of the sympathetic nervous system. So that's really the issue. You don't want to be in this constant state of a sympathetic nervous system. I have something called an Oura ring, and what it does is it measures something called heart rate variability. It may seem counterintuitive, but what happens is with heart rate variability, the higher your heart rate variability, the better it is. It means you're going very nicely between the sympathetic, the fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, the rest and recovery, on a regular basis. So my Oura ring will tell me when I check into my phone, it goes up to my phone, you're in usually a lot of stress today, or you're in a calm state today, and it breaks down based on this heart rate variability. So obviously it's nice to know if you're in a stressed state just by, feeling that you're stressed. But with the heart rate variability, and there's different monitors, I believe the Apple Watch has this, there's a lot of different things, but it shows you if you're in a constant state. If you're in a constant state of stress, the big issue that you're having is, again, you're shutting down your immune system. So you don't want to be in this constant sympathetic state. Couple of ways to tell what I do with a lot of clients when I do seminars. Oh, in fact, I'm talking about seminars. We're doing a seminar up at the Greendale Y, and it's going to be in February, and it's going to be actually on mind health, Alzheimer's, dementia, and things like that. Also, we had the Worcester Senior Center just hired us. We're doing a seminar also next month, and that's going to be on heart health because February is Heart Health Month. So if you're interested, I'm going to be there with my associate Kelly Hamilton. She's an ICU nurse. She's also a holistic nutrition. She's been on the show a couple of times, and we'll be doing a show on that. So if you're interested in heart health, you know, come down to the senior center, or if you're interested in mind health, again, we're going to be doing that up at the Greendale Y. So feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net, and I'll send you over the information how to come in. We run the seminars kind of like a game show. So we give out prizes and stuff. So it's very interactive. We ask a lot of questions. We have a lot of actually medical professionals actually in the audience because I had a lot of them on my show. So we get a lot of really good feedback, you know, from that. So if you want to come down, you know, like also we get people from my radio show, from the TV show to come down. Nice to meet you guys. Let us know what you think of the show if you want us to cover different things. So going back, so you may say, okay, I'm stressed all the time. What do I do about my stress? So one of the ways when I sit down with a client, I have them put their hand on their chest and the other hand on their stomach. And I say, where are you breathing? Where's the breath going into? If you're chest breathing, it means you're in a stress state because you're breathing in the chest. You've probably heard of people where they're really stressed out and they hyperventilate. What do? They put a paper bag over them to be able to breathe in more carbon dioxide, to be able to get themselves down. Because people can actually pass out if you hyperventilate too much. And again, that goes into stress. So one thing you want to do is if you feel you're stressed and you feel like you're breathing up here, put your hand and do a belly breath. In other words, make your belly go out. The other way you really do it, a good way to get into this parasympathetic state, I call it the birthday candle breathing. So what you want to do is imagine you have a birthday cake, you know, happy birthday to you, and the candle's over there. Take a deep breath in and go. So what you're doing is you're breathing out. What it does is, again, your body communicates to your brain all the time. If you're shallow breathing, it tells your brain that there's danger around because you're shallow breathing. So if you belly breathe, you tell your brain, everything's fine, I don't have to shallow breathe, because if you're shallow breathing, it means you're afraid. Think about it, if you're running a lot, right? If you're running a lot, you're not breathing in your belly, you're breathing in your chest. You're gonna get that air, oxygen in and out, so you wind up hyperventilating. So if you want to wind up going with the belly breathing as opposed to the chest breathing. This is good for everything, not only for stress. You want to breathe into your nose and not into your mouth. You probably heard the expression, he's a mouth breather. A lot of people breathe into the mouth. Okay, that's not good. Again, it's telling you you're hyperventilating. You're breathing into the mouth and not into the nose. There's a lot of reasons. In fact, even when you're exercising, if you're exercising, you want to be stopping at the point where you have to, you cannot breathe through your nose anymore. You have to breathe through your mouth. You want to be breathing through your nose. Few reasons for that. Again, getting into a little bit of biochemistry here. There's something called a nitric oxide. They actually won the Nobel Prize for this a few years ago. So nitric oxide, you probably heard of somebody if they have a heart attack. What they do is they'll inject them with nitroglycerin. You know, So nitroglycerin, what nitroglycerin does is it's a vasodilator. So when they inject you with the nitroglycerin, it opens up your blood vessels. The other thing, when you breathe through your nose, you have inside your nose, you have something called cilia. You know, the hair inside your nose. The cilia, what it does, when it activates that through breathing through your nose, it releases nitric oxide. So what it does is it will open up your blood vessels. Just like in a hose. If your hose is clamped up, you can't get as much water through. If your blood vessels are crimped, you can't get as much blood into your head and everything else. An interesting story how they came up with nitroglycerin is Alfred Nobel from the Nobel Prize. He won the Nobel Prize. Actually, they found out about the nitric oxide, but he also won the Nobel Prize. He invented dynamite, TNT, which is nitroglycerin. He felt really bad about that because what happened is he said, he's a scientist and he invented this thing that killed millions of people, nitroglycerin, dynamite. It killed a lot of people. Obviously, there's uses for nitroglycerin to where if you want to blow up a mountain, stuff like that, they get the gold out and stuff. But so with nitroglycerin, but what they found was in the factories, when they were making nitroglycerin, what happened, people wound up passing out on the floor. And they couldn't figure out why. And they did some more experimentation, and they found out because they were working with nitroglycerin, again, that's a vasodilator, the nitric oxide that came out, they were breathing it in, it dropped their blood pressure so much that they would pass out. That's one of the ways they figured out why nitroglycerin helps with heart attacks, because it opens up the blood vessels. So with you, if you're breathing in into your nose, what's happening is you're releasing a nitric oxide. So if you have high blood pressure, one of the reasons you have high blood pressure, in fact, going back to my hospital days, when we would get somebody coming in and we see their chart and they list out they list out that they have high blood pressure. Usually, what it's called idiopathic high blood pressure. So idiopathic is a medical term meaning we don't know what's causing it. We know there's a problem. We don't know what's causing it. There's idiopathic, a lot of things with diseases where they don't know what's causing the disease, but they know they have the disease. It's called idiopathic, hypertension. There's a lot of different things, but one of the things, if you have high blood pressure, again, there are certain supplements you can take. You guys have probably heard of a beetroot. So in order to make nitric oxide in your body, you need what's called the nitrate and nitrite. So first you got the nitrate converts to nitrite. The nitrite then converts into nitric oxide. There's different things you can take, and there's also these lozenges you can take on your tongue, and what it does is it releases nitric oxide. So if you have issues with high blood pressure, there's a lot of things you can do. In fact, I do it. I take these precursors to nitric oxide. I put them in, it's a little thing you put in, you drink it, and what it does, it's a precursor. It comes before the nitric oxide. So just with the nitric oxide, what will happen, it'll help lower your blood pressure, and then you may not even need to take on the blood pressure meds. So a high blood pressure, a big problem with a lot of people. The other big issue you have is, is arteriosclerosis. And arteriosclerosis is, again, it's related to your blood vessels clogging up where you can't get enough blood flow through. The other issue a lot of people are worried about, Alzheimer's and dementia, and I talk about this at the seminars, is what's happening is, again, you have your carotid arteries over here, and the blood goes up. But if these start closing up over and over again, you're not getting enough blood flow into your brain. You can have a stroke. You can have a heart attack. In fact, I know Art, the station manager, he doesn't mind if I mention this. He had what they call a 90% occlusion in his carotid arteries. Dr. Eddie Arus from the Vascular Care Group, one of the largest vascular care groups in New England, he's been on my show several times, been on my radio show. He's a sponsor. I went in and I wanted to know, I'm going on 80 years old. I want to know if I get any kind of occlusion in my arteries. So there's something called a carotid ultrasound, and all they do is you go in there. It's a non-invasive test. They put a little thing over here, and they can see how much occlusion you have in your arteries. Unfortunately, most doctors won't order that unless you have symptoms, The problem is you're not going to have symptoms until you have some serious occlusion. So if you're interested, and I suggest that it's a unfortunately, your insurance companies are not going to pay for it, but I did contact Dr. Arus, and they can give you a special deal on that. It may be on $100 or something. It's not very much money. But you're going to want to know, and one of the things I find, I give a lot of seminars to seniors, the number one fear seniors have is not that they're going to have a heart attack or they're going to come down with cancer. The number one fear seniors have, I have it, I don't want to have a stroke. I don't want to be a vegetable. I don't want my kids taking care of me. I don't want to be in diapers. I don't want any of that stuff. So I'm more worried about that. So I suggest you have this carotid ultrasound done and find out what's going on. If you find out that you actually have this occlusion, I do have protocols to take care of this, and nothing to do again with physicians. Physicians are in it, obviously, but unfortunately, you normally see a physician when you have the problem. I want to get you before you have the problem. I want to do preventative measures. Okay, so as a biochemist, what I want to know is what's called the root cause of the problem. Let's find out what's causing the problem. So if you have what again occlusion in your arteries, there are things you can do. One of the two things I recommend for everybody is something called vitamin D3. And a lot of people know vitamin D is really, really important. But one of the functions of vitamin D is to get calcium into the blood. The problem is calcium can go into different places. It can go into your arteries and it can go into your bones. You want it to go into your bones and not into your arteries. So you want to take along with the vitamin D something called vitamin K2. But you have to be really, really careful where you get your supplements from, because most of these supplements are made in China and India. You don't even know what's in them. So I have a trusted source where I get my supplements from. So I take vitamin D, I take vitamin K2. There's different forms of K2. There's MK4, there's MK7, and they do different things. Again, what I do is I do a free consult. So if you want to consult with me, I'll sit down with you, bring in all your lab work. I'll go over your lab work with you, no charge, and I'll explain to you, what the lab work means. Other lab work you probably should have done that they're probably not going to order. So again, that's at no charge. The reason I do it, my hope is you see some value in what I'm providing, and you'll hire me. And when I have a client, the first thing I say to them, my goal is for you to fire me as quickly as possible. Because what I want is I want you to take the information and maybe share it with other people. And again, I don't want you to, if you see me for more than a year, I'm not doing my job. What I have is, again, I go everything with you. What differentiates me from most health coaches is, again, I'm a biochemist. I understand the mechanism of action. You can get a health coaching degree online and you can have no medical background at all. So I want to know the root cause of the problem. So in addition to what I'm giving you in terms of going over your lab work, and again, I train doctors on lab work. This is my job. I train doctors on how to interpret clinical lab work and things like that. So this is my background. But I'm also steeped very heavily in nutrition. I'm also a certified coach in terms of a physical trainer. So you don't have to hire 3 people. You don't have to hire a nutritionist. You don't have to hire a personal trainer. And again, I can deal with your clinical part. The other big issue is what happens is I've got access on my Rolodex to almost every medical professional, but these medical professionals are individual. They're basically, they work for themselves. They're not employed by some big hospital where they have to follow what's called standard of care, where they have to do what the MBA at Harvard's telling them to do. I got tons of people. I got medical professionals I can turn you over to. They've been on my show. I've had this show for 3 years. I've had just about every medical professional you can imagine. I've had nutritionists on there. Again, I work with an ICU nurse that's a holistic nutritionist, so we work together. We can do different things. Plus, if you'd like me to come out and do a seminar at your group, senior center, again, we're going to the Worcester Senior Center, or we're going to the Greendale Y. We have a lot of different groups we go to. If you want us to give a presentation, we'll be happy to do that. So we're coming up to the end of the show, and feel free to email me, philgeorge@charter.net. We'll be back next week. Again, I have just type in Wellness Wave Radio. I'm on YouTube, and I'm on also on all the podcasts. So say goodbye to my friend Zach, and we'll see you next week. One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is, what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend, with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net, for a free consult.